Who remembers Google Reader? It was shut down over 10 years ago, can you believe, in July 2013. It was a wonderful application, beloved by many, and it was used to read about updates to your favorite websites. It used this technology called RSS, really simple syndication, and it just simply displayed whenever you had an update to a website you followed, so you could click and read it and then click through to that website. And many people believe that its demise was the end of that open, unrestricted era of the internet. And it began the new generation of it, the sort of internet where the gatekeepers were these big companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft. But RSS is still here, still very useful, and it makes for a really nice case study here in Google Sheets. So I wanted to build my own RSS reader, a real one that actually works in Google Sheets, and base it on the original Google Reader. Of course, it doesn't have nearly as much functionality, but it still does a lot of very interesting things. So right now it's just showing me these three subscriptions: the New York Times, my own website, and Google Workspace updates. And gives me the titles, who wrote it, the publication, the date, they're ordered in date order. And I can also click to go straight through to any of the links if I want to read them, which is really nice. And it actually works and updates. So whenever something fresh is published, it will pop through onto here. I can add more subscriptions. Let's add in The Verge. And there we go. Now you can see The Verge is popped into my feed as well. It's added that one in for me. And if I want to, at the moment, I'm pulling out 4 items for each of these subscriptions. If I want to change that, I can pop open my settings over here and change the feed count to, let's say, 3. And there we go. Now it's just 3 for each one. In fact, let's go back to, I don't know, let's say 7. I want 7 for each one. And then it'll pull out 7 for each of my subscriptions. So that's really nice. That's my little settings tab. And suppose I want to favorite a few things as well. I even implemented favorites. And I'll just show you it working, and then I'll explain why it's actually not truthfully a real favorites thing. But let's say I was interested in that Verge article, this Verge article, this from myself here, one from Google Workspace, and then just one from the Google Sheets here. That's from New York Times. So 5 saved items you see there. I get rid of 1, down to 4, back up to 5, and then it just shows me my favorites over here. Now it doesn't persist this data. This is all done with formulas, so it doesn't actually really connect these favorites. These are independent of these rows in a sense. So not a true favorites, but it's just a nice, fun technique. There's a couple of interesting things happening here that I want to show you. Anyway, we're all getting ahead of ourselves. I think what I want to do to start with is show you the import feed formula. Let's start there. Let's just build the very basic RSS feed, and I'll just show you how you can do it for one, and then we'll look at this example here. Okay, so let's start with the Google Workspace Updates feed from Google. And it's a good place to actually keep track of anyway, and it makes for a nice example feed to put into our Google Sheet. So what we do is we notice that they have this subscribe by feed feature. So we'll click it. That will give us the URL here that we need. It doesn't make much sense for us. It doesn't help us reading, but this is a computer readable text. So we'll grab this URL up at the top here. I'm going to drop that URL into A1. Then I'll say import feed A1. And there we go. Now it's really hard to read because these big blocks of text it has. So I'm just going to highlight all of these, right click and resize the rows down to say 42, which is just double height if you like. And I'll also just top align everything. Okay, so let me open this one out. Title of what it's about, the author, which is just unknown in this case, the URL to actually go and click through to read the full story, the date and the timestamp, and then the full sort of summary as well, which is why those rows were so huge, because there's a lot of information in this and it couldn't display it any other way because of all the line breaks. So with this import feed, there are some optional parameters. So I'll come inside the formula next to the A1, I'll say comma, and let me open out this just so we can see. So the query here, and this specifies what data to fetch. And if I learn more, then optional items by default, or the feed is the other option. So if I put in feed, it's essentially going to sort of pull back some metadata about who this is, what this is. It's the official feed from the Google Workspace team. So that's feed, or items is basically the other option. And items, as we saw, just pulls back everything. And it looks like it gives you 20 items, but let's say we only want 10. And actually, you know, we really want to bring back that header as well. So let's say 1 for the header, and let's say 5 items. We'll say 5, we'll get 5. And there we go. Now it's pulled back the header, which is nice, and just the 5 items. So I can specify that with these optional parameters. Now, the other thing you could do is you can actually pull out a particular item. So if we want items title, for example, then it just pulls back the title. We want the date, we say created, just pulls back the dates. We want just the URLs, pulls back just the URLs. And if you take that off again, it goes back to the full thing. So that's quite nice. That's a way to specify just the particular columns you want. And later on, when we build the full reader, or when I show you how that was built, you'll see why that was so useful. So the next thing you might do is you might say, well, you know what, this summary column is kind of overblown because it's messing up all my row heights. And if I want to read more, I'm going to click through on this URL anyway, because it's really difficult to read this. The author column is useless in this one because it's all unknown. There's no author effectively. So really we just want these 3 columns, and I want the date first, then the title, then the URL. So what we can do is wrap this with a formula called choose cols. 5 columns. We want to start with 4, which is the date column. Then I want the title, which was 1, and then we want the URL, which was 3. So choose cols. Really nice formula, a new formula, and it just chooses those 3 columns for me. And of course now I can resize all those rows, make those headers bold, and make this wider. We don't really need these to be fully showing. They can just be like that. It's the URL. And there we go. That's a sort of mini reader there for the RSS Google Workspace updates. And we'll probably go back to say, let's at least have 10. There we go. That's better. And that's the basic reader. Now, we might want to just tidy up this date column, because if I say equals is date, false. So is it a date? Google Sheets says false. No, it's a not date. It can't recognize this as a date, which is a bit unfortunate. Okay, so let's create a formula here to convert this to a date. We'll say equals left this and 19. And all that does is just cut off that -808 thing, which is sort of the timestamp, if you like, and cuts off some of the extra zeros we have after that, which is just the milliseconds, in fact. Because we have hours, minutes, and seconds. Let me make this a little wider. Okay, so that's just chopping off the -8 and the milliseconds, the stuff we don't need. Next, we'll say substitute, difficult one to spell. Text to search for is T. Text to search, I beg your pardon, is that one. We want to search for, I want to search for T and replace with this, just a space. Gets rid of that T that's in the middle. And then we'll try saying date value. And there we go. It's converted that to that. You think, hang on, it's just changed it into a number, but a number in a spreadsheet is a date. Beautiful. You can see there, 1/3/2024, January 3rd, 2024. As I said, a number in a spreadsheet or date in a spreadsheet is stored as a number. What about if we want the time? Well, what we'll do is we'll grab the inside here, and over here, I'll just say, we'll just make that again. Get the full thing. This time though, we'll say, instead of date value, time value. And there we go. And then we'll convert that to duration. 1141, there's my two components. If I wish, I could combine them together in a single cell. So that one and this one, and we'll add them together because you see this is a decimal. And this one is the, well, it's this number here. So if I add this one on, it's a number, 45,294. The number represents the date. The decimal represents the percentage through how far we've gone through the day itself. So we'll convert this now to something like, let's go custom date and time. Or actually, we'll just use the date time up here. Nice. And that just converts that. And we can say equals is dates now. Down here, true. Whereas remember, is date. This one over here was false. Perfecto. Very nice indeed. We can just drag that down and make that formula work for us there. So you could just add that in now as an extra column just on the end, or perhaps before in front of this one, so that you can always have the correct date. And there we go. Let's just build on this one we've already done. So we'll delete those two columns, get rid of those. So now we have this nice formatted date. Okay, and what we'll do is let's add one more feed. We'll go and add, let's save my own. We'll just pop that there. So we'll take the same formula and copy it just underneath, except this time we'll set that header there, the headers to 0. We want no headers on this example. And there we go, look, it just pulls out now all of mine with the, these are the, whoops, actually, you know what, it's not pulling mine because I've said A1 still, we need A2, don't we, of course. Here we go, that looks better. These are the ones from my own website now. Now, unfortunately, this formula we built no longer works because these dates are, again, in a different format. So let's build a quick formula that fixes those dates. Then I'll show you how you can get them into your own reader, into nice columns. So this time we'll go equals mid, grab this one, starting at 6, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it always has 3 letters for the abbreviated day, then a comma, then a space. That's 5 characters. And then the 6th character is the date character. So we want 6. And then we want to go all the way through to the end of the seconds, which is 11. Actually, that goes straight to the end of the 2023. And then we just wrap that with date value. Again, same as before. Wonderful, 12/22, so 22nd of December. And of course, we didn't pull out the time stamp yet, so let's do that. So we'll do that over the side for the moment. So we'll say mid again. This one here, this time it starts at 18. So that's the position of that there. So it's all the way through the date in the space, and it's the first digit then of the number of the time. And we want 8 because there are 6 numbers in the 2 colons. Enter, there we go. Wrap it with time value. And there we go, it gives me the decimal. We'll copy that and just add it to this one here. Perfect. So two slightly different formulas just to cope with these two slightly different date formats. I'll drag that down just by double clicking on the blue, send it down the column there. And now what I can do is say, choose calls. Just going to grab this array. And this time we want to do a 3, 1, 2. So we're just going to skip this column now. We'll just pull in the title, the URL, and the formatted date. It's very nice. Drag that down, wrap that. Then we'll just wrap it with a sort. And we're going to sort on 1. And is it ascending? No, it's descending. So we want false there. And there we go. Just rearranges that in order of when they were published. And we'll just stop the wrap there. There we go. And that now has a mix of some of my posts like this one, my end of year review, and the workspace updates all mixed in depending on whenever they were published. And there we go. It's nice. It's building on two formulas there with two feeds, but you could easily add more. It's just one formula with yellow there and then a second one here. And those two formulas, one has the header row, the other one skips the header row. So if you're doing a third, if you wanted a third feed, you could put it there. Drag the date column down depending on which one you need to use and combine them and sort them. There we go. And that's how you could build that example there. Now I had got a bit carried away last night and wanted to build something that looked like the reader, and I wanted to add or remove these automatically. So I didn't have to build those formulas, which made the formulas I created and used absurdly complex. And I'm not going to try and walk through them now because just look at this nonsense. But I'll just call out a few things that might be interesting. First of all, I use the let here, the let function, which is wonderful, to then name each of the columns. So this is the publication column, which was this first one. This is the title column, or the author column rather, then the title column, then the date column, and the link column. So you'll see each of those. So there's the RSS publication, that's the name, then the RSS authors, the titles, the dates, and the URL. So I've used let to name each column, and then I go and create the array of data that builds that column. And somewhere hidden in the middle, you'll see the import feed. And the reason these look absurdly complex is only because of the fact that I'm building from this array. So it's grabbing all of these at once and going and grabbing that data for all of them at once. So if I add more, it just automatically expands and adds in that new data. Okay, and then the other thing I'll call out is you'll see that curly bracket there and that curly bracket. That's the piece that actually builds the output. Those two curly brackets build an array called an array literal. And then you can see I just say, give me these 5 columns. And you'll see this middle column, the date column, I do some funky stuff just to fix the dates like we saw. Like I just showed you, date value plus time value for the mid, using the mid and then using the substitute and the left. But I just do that all in one go. With the URLs, rather than display the whole URL, I've used map and hyperlink to just fix them and turn them into these little chain links. And then finally, I just do that sort on the fly because I'm building the data with an array. I just pop it inside the sort automatically. So I can do the entire thing in one formula, which, as I said, is completely unnecessary and absurd, but I just have fun, a bit of a crazy obsession with trying to do all my work in a single formula, sometimes just for a bit of a challenge. So that's that. What about these stars? I'll quickly show you that. And the first thing to show you is that these are checkboxes. That's all that's happening. It's the checkbox. The star itself isn't clickable. That's just a formula that says equals whatever the value of the checkbox is. And with a checkbox, you can go to data validation, and this checkbox here, you can use custom cell values for your checkboxes and turn them into these values here. When it's checked, it's a filled in star. When it's unchecked, it's the empty star. And that just lets me then, when I say equals, display that there. Because you see here, it doesn't actually show me, the stars have the values here, but it still shows me, it's still a checkbox. You can see up here, it's the value, but it's still showing as the checkbox in this cell here. So I don't really want the checkbox there because the whole point is I want to show the stars. So I just made the star visible next to it using this formula. And then I turn the checkbox itself into a very, very pale white. That custom there, it's like one value off white because I pick white and they made it just a pure white. Then here we go. You've clicked the checkbox, it's not visible, toggle anyway, and that's a super annoying one. So I don't want to use the pure white. I want to use the slightly off-white version. And when I click it, then the checkbox is toggled, and this then is toggled. So that's all that's going on there. As I said, though, these don't actually persist with the data. They're not linked to this actual row. So when a new value comes in, if I star this one, the star stays here. It doesn't move down a row. So it's really not a true starred item. It's just a bit of fun with some cool formula stuff. This formula over here just counts the stars, the true value, or the stars rather. There, just counts the solid stars in column G. And then over here on the other side, I've just used a query function to say when that star is showing, just pull out my favorites over here. That was the point with that. And really, I did that just to, as I said, explore the custom values with a checkbox to see what could be done with them and to make it look like a bit more like the original reader. And that's about it, folks. So I wouldn't suggest trying to necessarily recreate this formula. So the way I'd recommend doing it is, I said, you could build a very practical working version, just dropping in your feeds as you require them with the formulas, and then just combine them all with the sort, and that keeps it simple. It's very easy to fix. But hopefully you've enjoyed this lesson. You've learned about import feed, and you can go ahead and build your own RSS Reader too. So thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again soon in another video. Bye for now.